Chapter 5 A Dark Prophecy. The moon hung high and luminous in the night sky, its silvery light casting an otherworldly glow over the sprawling kingdoms of Atlantia and Eldoria. The ocean's surface shimmered with the moon's reflection, while the palace towers and coral spires below were bathed in a soft, ethereal luminescence. The peaceful facade of the night belied the storm brewing beneath, as fate prepared to intervene in ways none could yet foresee. The tranquil night air, filled with the distant sounds of waves and the occasional call of nocturnal creatures, seemed to hold its breath. In the heart of Atlantia, the underwater kingdom thrummed with its usual nocturnal rhythms, while above, Eldoria's grand palace remained a bastion of stately silence. Yet beneath this veneer of calm, the threads of destiny were converging, weaving a complex tapestry of ambition, betrayal, and prophecy. As the moonlight illuminated both realms, it also cast long, foreboding shadows that hinted at the upheaval to come. The prophecy, a dark harbinger of what was to unfold, began to take shape in the secretive chambers of both kingdoms. The peaceful beauty of the night was a stark contrast to the turmoil that would soon erupt, as the forces of fate and ambition prepared to clash. The prophecy would intertwine the destinies of Atlantia and Eldoria in ways that neither kingdom could yet comprehend. The moon's light, a silent witness to the unfolding drama, seemed to foreshadow the coming convergence of their fates. As the night wore on, the celestial glow became a symbol of the impending crisis, casting an eerie calm over the kingdoms. Unseen by the rulers and their subjects, the threads of fate were tightening, drawing Atlantia and Eldoria into a shared struggle. The moon's silver light, once a symbol of tranquility, now held an ominous significance, reflecting the dark omens that would soon reshape the course of their history. The peaceful night was but a fleeting moment before the storm of prophecy would change everything. In the grand, echoing halls of Eldoria's palace, the air was heavy with the weight of history and governance. King Alistair, ensconced behind a richly carved wooden desk, was surrounded by a labyrinth of maps and documents. The papers, detailed with intricate charts and annotations, sprawled across the desk in a testament to the kingdom's complex affairs. Candlelight flickered across the polished marble floors, casting dancing shadows that mirrored the seriousness of the king's deliberations. The solemn silence of the chamber, usually a sanctuary of contemplative solitude, was abruptly shattered by the arrival of an unexpected visitor. The heavy wooden doors to the throne room creaked open, revealing a robed seer who moved with an air of otherworldly grace. The figure's cloak, a deep, flowing fabric that shimmered faintly in the dim light, seemed to merge with the darkness of the corridor, creating an almost spectral presence that immediately drew the attention of everyone in the room. The seer's eyes, visible through the hood of their cloak, were pools of ancient wisdom and enigmatic depth. They carried a gaze that seemed to pierce through the veils of time, searching the very soul of those they encountered. As the royal guards ushered the seer into the throne room with a mix of reverence and caution, the atmosphere thickened with a palpable sense of anticipation and unease. The usual calm of the palace was replaced by an electric tension, as if the very walls were bracing themselves for the weight of the seer's message. King Alistair looked up from his desk, his usually stern face etched with curiosity and concern. The seer's sudden and unannounced appearance was an anomaly that disrupted the orderly flow of the royal court. His eyes, sharp and alert, scrutinized the figure before him, trying to discern the nature of this intrusion and what it might portend for his kingdom. The flickering candlelight reflected off the king's polished armor, casting an almost ghostly glow on his face. As the seer approached the king's throne, the room fell into a hushed silence, the only sound the soft rustling of the seer's robes and the distant murmur of the palace. The tension was palpable, with each member of the court sensing the gravity of the moment. The usual courtly decorum was overshadowed by the weight of impending revelations, as the seer's presence promised a shift in the kingdom's fate. King Alastair gestured for the seer to approach, his hand moving with deliberate calm despite the turmoil within. The seer's entrance was a prelude to a message that would undoubtedly alter the course of Eldoria's future. The king's eyes were fixed on the robed figure, bracing himself for the impact of whatever prophecy or warning the seer might deliver. The anticipation in the room was a living thing, pressing in on the assembled court. The seer finally reached the center of the throne room, where the atmosphere was charged with expectation. The figure's presence, both commanding and ethereal, seemed to draw the very light of the room toward them, casting a spotlight on the king's grim expression. The room's grandeur, with its high ceilings and elaborate tapestries, felt suddenly small and inadequate in the face of the seer's portentous arrival. As the seer prepared to speak, the candle flames flickered more intensely, casting elongated shadows that danced across the walls. The room was a study in contrasts, the opulence of the palace juxtaposed with the weighty, foreboding air brought by the mysterious visitor. The grandeur of Eldoria's throne room seemed to shrink under the seer's inscrutable gaze, setting the stage for a revelation that would ripple through the corridors of power and beyond. The seer's voice, ancient and haunting, broke the heavy silence of the throne room, sending a shiver through the gathered assembly. Each word seemed to reverberate through the air, carrying with it an echo of something profoundly otherworldly. In the shadow of the moon's light, the seer began, their voice imbued with a chilling resonance. When the kingdom's fates are entwined, a betrayal will unfold. The words carried a foreboding weight, their solemnity amplifying the tension that already crackled in the room. King Alastair's eyes widened with a mix of alarm and curiosity as the prophecy took shape. The seer's presence and their cryptic message seemed to cast a spell over the room, drawing every gaze towards them. The grandeur of the throne room, with its high ceilings and elaborate tapestries, appeared to fade into insignificance against the gravity of the prophecy. The light from the flickering candles cast eerie shadows that danced across the walls, making the words seem even more surreal and disquieting. The seer continued, their tone unwavering despite the palpable unease. The blood spilled in the name of power, they intoned, will awaken the ancient wrath. The prophecy hinted at a betrayal deeply rooted in ambition and conflict, a promise of upheaval and retribution. Each phrase was like a dark omen, weaving a tapestry of impending doom that seemed to close in around the king and his court. The chilling words wrapped around the room like a shroud, intensifying the sense of dread. As the seer spoke, the atmosphere in the room grew colder, as if the very air had been touched by the darkness of the prophecy. A storm shall rise from the depths and the surface alike, the seer's voice continued, bringing ruin and redemption in its wake. The imagery of a storm, both oceanic and terrestrial, evoked a sense of inevitable upheaval, a convergence of forces that would shatter the fragile peace of the kingdoms. The king's knuckles whitened as he gripped the arms of his throne, his face a mask of grim determination. The seer's gaze swept over the court, their eyes revealing nothing of the secrets they held. The words lingered, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch from the flickering candlelight. The assembled courtiers exchanged anxious glances, their earlier poise giving way to unease. The grandeur of the throne room seemed to shrink under the weight of the prophecy, the opulence of the surroundings now a stark contrast to the dark foreboding of the seer's message. King Alastair, though visibly shaken, maintained a stern composure. He met the seer's gaze with a steely resolve, understanding that the prophecy was not just a warning but a challenge. "What must be done to avert this storm?" he asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. The question hung in the air, seeking guidance from the enigmatic seer who had delivered such a chilling vision of the future. The seer remained silent for a moment, allowing their words to fully permeate the atmosphere before responding. The silence that followed was thick with anticipation and the haunting sense of inevitability. The flickering candlelight cast long, restless shadows, as if the very walls of the throne room were echoing the prophecy's dark promise. The night had taken on a new and ominous significance, marking the beginning of a turbulent chapter in the history of both kingdoms. As the seer departed, their departure seemed to draw the shadows of the throne room closer, leaving behind an unsettling aura of foreboding. The flickering candlelight cast eerie, wavering shadows on the opulent walls, amplifying the sense of dread that hung in the air. The grandeur of the palace, with its rich tapestries and polished marble floors, felt suddenly diminished in the wake of the prophecy, as if the very essence of the room had been tainted by the dark omens revealed. King Alastair stood alone in the throne room, the seer's words echoing in his mind like a chilling refrain. The prophecy had cast a long shadow over what had once been a straightforward threat. The assassination plot, which had originally seemed like a direct and isolated challenge to his reign, now appeared to be part of a much larger and more perilous scheme. The realization that Atlanteus' fate was intricately linked with his own added layers of complexity and danger to the situation. The king's brow furrowed deeply as he contemplated the implications of the prophecy. Each detail of the seer's message seemed to unravel a new thread of potential disaster, weaving a tapestry of imminent chaos. The weight of impending disaster pressed heavily upon him, each breath he took feeling laden with the gravity of the forewarning. The once clear path of his rule now seemed obscured by the looming threat of a storm that spanned both surface and sea. In the dim light of the throne room, King Alastair's mind raced with strategies and possibilities. The threat was no longer confined to the confines of his own kingdom, but extended into the deep waters of Atlantia, suggesting a convergence of political and mystical forces. His thoughts swirled with the urgent need to devise a plan that would not only protect his realm but also address the broader implications of the prophecy. The sense of urgency grew with each passing moment, as he sought to navigate the treacherous waters of both intrigue and prophecy. The king's face, normally a picture of regal composure, was now etched with lines of concern and determination. The prophecy's dark promise had cast a pall over his thoughts, making it clear that the road ahead would be fraught with peril. As the room remained steeped in silence, punctuated only by the distant hum of palace activity, King Alastair prepared himself for the daunting task of confronting the forces that threatened not just his kingdom, but the stability of both realms. In the heart of Atlanteus' underwater palace, the ambience was a stark contrast to the grim reality unfolding above. The Oracle, a revered figure draped in flowing robes of shimmering sea silk, stood in the center of the luminescent chamber. The walls of the chamber glowed softly with the light of bioluminescent flora, casting an otherworldly illumination that danced across the corals and crystal formations. This ethereal setting seemed almost to amplify the gravity of the oracle's words, adding a haunting beauty to the chilling message about to be delivered. As the oracle began to speak, their voice resonated with a profound depth that seemed to ripple through the water itself. "The tides of fate will clash with the fury of betrayal," the oracle intoned, their tone laden with ancient wisdom and foreboding. The words seemed to swirl around Prince Kael, whose sleek form was a sharp contrast against the glowing backdrop. The prophecy's ominous tone was underscored by the flickering lights, which cast shifting shadows that seemed to whisper of impending doom. Prince Kael listened intently, his eyes narrowing as he absorbed the gravity of the oracle's message. As the surface and the depths converge, the oracle continued, "Darkness will rise." The prophecy painted a picture of an inevitable clash between realms, a convergence fraught with peril. Kael's sharp gaze reflected the seriousness of the prophecy, his regal demeanor a mask for the intense concern brewing beneath. The notion of darkness rising in the wake of this convergence was particularly unsettling, suggesting a threat that reached beyond the immediate scope of their underwater kingdom. The oracle's final words hung in the water like a shroud. "Beware the shadows, for they will reveal the path to salvation or destruction. The chamber's soft, bioluminescent glow seemed to dim slightly, casting deeper, more menacing shadows as if in response to the prophecy. The duality of salvation and destruction, presented as two potential outcomes, added a layer of complexity to the already unsettling revelation. Cale's mind raced as he processed the oracle's words, the weight of responsibility and impending danger settling heavily on his shoulders. In the stillness that followed the oracle's departure, the chamber seemed to pulse with the resonance of the prophecy. Cale remained motionless for a moment, the intricate patterns of bioluminescent light reflecting the turmoil within him. The revelation that the surface world and the underwater kingdom were bound by a shared fate brought a new dimension to the political strife he faced. The dark shadows and the promise of a rising storm now loomed over both realms, marking the beginning of a perilous journey that would test his resolve and leadership. The prophecy left Cale deeply unsettled, his normally composed demeanor showing cracks as he absorbed the weight of the oracle's dire predictions. The serene beauty of Atlanteus Palace, with its shimmering coral walls and soft, bioluminescent glow, now felt starkly incongruent with the gravity of the words he had just heard. The once peaceful ambience of the underwater realm seemed to waver, as if the very essence of the palace was reflecting the turmoil within the prince's heart. Cale's mind raced with the implications of the prophecy, each word unraveling a thread of anxiety and concern. The phrase, "The tides of fate will clash with the fury of betrayal," echoed relentlessly in his thoughts, conjuring images of chaos and upheaval. The peaceful rhythm of the ocean, normally a source of calm and reassurance, now seemed to thrum with a sense of impending doom. The grandeur of the palace, adorned with intricate patterns of bioluminescence and flowing sea silk, felt oddly oppressive under the shadow of the oracle's message. The prince moved through the palace's grand hallways with a sense of urgency, the usual grace of his movements now marred by a tense determination. Every corner of the palace, from the majestic coral arches to the serene gardens illuminated by soft, glowing orbs, seemed to echo with the prophecy's implications. Cale's sharp eyes scanned his surroundings with a newfound intensity, his mind grappling with the reality that the kingdom's tranquility was now threatened by forces beyond its control. As he reached the central chamber, where Atlanteus' most important decisions were made, Cale could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The chamber, once a symbol of stability and governance, now felt like a crucible where the future of his realm would be forged. The intricate patterns of light and shadow cast by the bioluminescent flora seemed to dance ominously, mirroring the prince's inner turmoil. The prophecy had transformed what was once a peaceful realm into a stage set for conflict and strife. The realization that the fate of Atlantia was intertwined with the surface world brought a new dimension to the challenges Cale faced. The prophecy's promise of both destruction and redemption created a complex web of possibilities, each more daunting than the last. The tranquil waters of the kingdom now felt charged with a sense of urgency, as if the very currents were reflecting the prince's anxious thoughts. Cale knew that the time for mere vigilance had passed. Decisive action was needed to navigate the treacherous waters ahead. In the dim light of the central chamber, Cale's thoughts turned to the surface world, where the political tensions and unrest were poised to intersect with his own realm. The idea that the destiny of Atlantia was now bound to the unfolding events above was a sobering realization. The once clear boundaries between the surface and the depths had become blurred, and the intricate balance of power was at risk of tipping into chaos. Cale's resolve hardened as he contemplated the path that lay ahead, one fraught with uncertainty and peril. The weight of the prophecy was a constant presence, a reminder that the fate of both his kingdom and the surface world was at stake. Cale's mind was a whirl of strategies and scenarios, each one more complex than the last. The need to protect Atlantia while addressing the broader implications of the prophecy became the central focus of his thoughts. The challenge was not just to safeguard his realm but to navigate the intersecting currents of fate that threatened to engulf them all. As the night deepened, Chaol remained in the central chamber, his thoughts a tumult of urgency and determination. The palace, usually a haven of peace and beauty, now felt like a fortress under siege. The serene beauty of Atlanteus' palace seemed to be in stark contrast to the turmoil within Chaol's heart, reflecting the chasm between the kingdom's tranquil past and its uncertain future. The prince's resolve was unwavering, even as the darkness of the prophecy loomed large over his thoughts. With the prophecy's ominous promise hanging heavily in the air, Chaol knew that he faced a pivotal moment in his leadership. The path ahead would require not only courage and wisdom but also a deep understanding of the forces at play. The intricate dance of politics, prophecy, and ambition had begun, and the fate of Atlantia, and its tenuous relationship with the surface world, now rested on his shoulders. As the prophecy's ominous words settled over both kingdoms, Eldoria and Atlantia found themselves on the brink of an unprecedented crisis. King Alistair of Eldoria, with his kingdom's serene beauty now tinged with apprehension, wrestled with the realization that the prophecy's dark foretellings extended far beyond his immediate threat. The once vibrant court of Eldoria, with its opulent halls and glittering festivities, now felt overshadowed by the foreboding message, its grandeur diminished under the weight of impending doom. In Atlantia, the atmosphere was equally charged with tension. Prince Chaol's kingdom, with its shimmering underwater palaces and tranquil coral gardens, faced a profound shift as the prophecy's impact rippled through its depths. The usually calming flow of the ocean seemed to echo the gravity of the words spoken by the oracle, casting a veil of unease over the majestic underwater realm. The prophecy had transformed Atlantia's serene beauty into a stage for an unfolding drama that demanded immediate and decisive action. The intertwining fates of Eldoria and Atlantia created a complex web of alliances and conflicts, setting the scene for a confrontation that would test the resolve of both realms. The political landscape, previously marked by a delicate balance of power, now teetered on the edge of upheaval. The once clear boundaries between the surface and underwater worlds began to blur, as the prophecy's dark promise threatened to unravel the fragile peace that had long existed between the two kingdoms. As the two kings grappled with the gravity of their respective situations, the stage was set for a dramatic clash of ambitions and destinies. The looming shadows of the prophecy cast an ominous pall over their political machinations, signaling that the unfolding events would challenge both their leadership and their alliances. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, and the resolve of Eldoria and Atlantia would be tested in ways they had never anticipated, as the intertwined fates of their realms began to shape the course of their shared history.